Ladies and gentlemen, there comes a moment in every woman's life when she realizes respect isn't something she asks for. It's something she commands. Not through chasing, not through proving, but through presence. Because when you stop begging for effort and start matching energy, the entire dynamic shifts. He doesn't just notice you, he admires you. He doesn't just want you, he respects you. And the women who master these four rules, they don't compete for attention. They create a standard so powerful, it demands it. And men deeply respect women who apply these four rules. Because these are not tricks, not games, not mind tactics. They are standards, powerful, quiet, unshakable standards that change how a man sees you, how he values you, and most importantly, how he treats you. Respect doesn't come from how much you give, how much you please, or how much you prove. It comes from how you move, how you choose, and how you hold yourself when no one is watching. And the first rule is this: never overinvest in someone who's underinvesting in you. It sounds simple, but it's where so many people fall. You start off with interest, excitement, curiosity. But somewhere along the way, you begin doing all the work. You text first, you plan the dates, you show up emotionally, mentally, physically, while they give you breadcrumbs in return. And you start thinking, if I just do a little more, maybe they'll see my value. But here's the truth: the moment you start chasing, you stop being chosen. Because what you're telling them without words is, I'm okay carrying the imbalance, and no one truly respects what they can take for granted. And when you stop overinvesting, you create space for effort to be earned. You teach people that your attention is valuable, that your presence is not a given. That doesn't make you cold. It makes you real. It shows emotional maturity, not detachment. The kind of maturity that says, I'm not angry you didn't meet me halfway. I just know what I deserve and I don't negotiate with inconsistency. Men deeply respect that. Because it signals you're not driven by desperation but by discernment. You're not waiting for approval. You're walking in self-worth. And the second rule is this: protect your peace more than you protect the connection. There are moments when someone's energy starts to drain you, when the conversations become one-sided, when the uncertainty eats at your self-esteem, when you start losing yourself in the name of keeping something alive, and you tell yourself, maybe this is what love is: work, patience, endurance. But there's a difference between effort and erosion. True effort builds you. Unhealthy effort breaks you. The women who are deeply respected are the ones who know when to walk away, not because they stopped caring, but because they care too much about their peace to keep sacrificing it for confusion. And a man knows when a woman values her peace. He sees it in the way she sets boundaries without apology. He hears it in the way she says, "This isn't working for me," without drama, without bitterness, without trying to guilt or control. That calm confidence, it's magnetic. It's not about playing hard to get. It's about being hard to lose. Because your peace is your power. And when a woman protects her power, the world has no choice but to meet her at that level. And the third rule: never confuse connection with compatibility. Just because it feels intense doesn't mean it's right. Just because there's chemistry doesn't mean there's alignment. You can meet someone who sets your soul on fire, who says all the right things, who mirrors your emotions perfectly, and still be completely wrong for your long-term peace. Respect is born when you can feel the pull and still choose the path that honors your standards. It's when you can say, yes, this connection is strong, but if it costs me clarity, I'm not staying. And this is what separates emotional intelligence from emotional impulse. Men respect women who can feel deeply but choose wisely, who don't let their heart silence their intuition, who can love someone but still love themselves more. That's not selfish, that's sacred, Because the truth is, not everyone who awakens your emotions deserves your loyalty. Not everyone who sparks your heart deserves your lifetime. When you stop trying to turn chemistry into commitment, you start attracting people who are truly compatible with your peace, your values, and your direction. And the fourth rule, the one that transforms every interaction, is this: stay feminine, but never forget your power. Because true femininity isn't weakness, it's strength wrapped in grace. It's when you can express softness without losing self-respect. It's when you can be nurturing without being naive. It's when you can give without abandoning yourself. Men respect women who can meet them with both warmth and wisdom, who can hold space for love, but still hold themselves accountable to their standards. And when a woman embodies both softness and strength, she becomes unforgettable because she's not trying to compete with a man, she's complementing him. She's not trying to control, she's grounded in her worth. She doesn't need to prove her value, she radiates it. There's a certain peace in her presence, a confidence that doesn't scream but commands attention, and that energy shifts how men show up. Because the moment a man senses that a woman respects herself, he either rises to meet her or he leaves. Either way, she wins, and every man knows the difference between a woman who waits to be chosen and a woman who chooses herself. The latter doesn't chase validation, she creates it. She doesn't lose sleep over someone who's inconsistent, she withdraws with dignity. She doesn't fight for closure, she creates it through acceptance. That's where her power lies, in her ability to walk away without resentment, to love without attachment, and to desire without dependency. And when a woman applies these four rules, something shifts in the energy around her. People stop testing her because her boundaries speak louder than her words. Men stop playing games because they realize she doesn't play any. Her life becomes calmer, her standards become clearer, and her confidence becomes contagious. She stops trying to make people choose her, and instead, she becomes the kind of woman people feel honored to be chosen by. And respect isn't demanded, it's earned by how you move. It's earned when your standards are clear even when your emotions are strong. When you don't beg for consistency, you embody it. When you don't compete for attention, you command it. When you don't try to convince someone to see your value, you walk in it. The world mirrors how you treat yourself. The moment you start honoring your worth, everyone around you is forced to do the same, and let's be clear, these rules aren't about perfection. They're about self-awareness. There will be moments you give too much, moments you slip, moments you forget your worth. But the power lies in catching yourself quicker each time. It's in saying, I may have lost myself for a moment, but I won't make it a pattern. That's what growth looks like. That's what emotional strength feels like. And because every time you honor your standards, you're teaching others how to love you. Every time you walk away from confusion, you're saying, I choose clarity. Every time you choose peace over chaos, you're reminding the world that your energy isn't cheap. And every time you refuse to settle for less, you're declaring that you're not just a woman to be pursued. You're a woman to be respected. And men don't respect women because they're beautiful, charming, or giving. They respect women who are self-possessed, who know when to lean in and when to walk away, who understand that being loving doesn't mean being limitless. Because when you master your limits, you master your life. The truth is, men take notes from how you treat yourself. If you accept inconsistency, they'll give it. If you tolerate mixed signals, they'll send them. But when you demand emotional maturity through your actions, not your words, they either evolve or exit. And the power isn't in convincing anyone to change. It's in being so grounded in your standards that change becomes the only way they can stay. That's the difference between being liked and being respected, because respect isn't about admiration, it's about recognition. It's when someone looks at you and says, she's not like the rest, she moves differently. And that difference doesn't come from what you say, it comes from what you allow. And the women who live by these four rules don't chase respect, they embody it. They don't demand better, they expect it. And they don't settle for attention, they attract devotion. Because once a woman realizes her worth, everything she touches changes. Not because she's louder, but because she's clearer. Not because she's perfect, but because she's powerful. And that, more than anything, is what makes men deeply respect her. And here's the truth, most people never tell you respect doesn't come from control, it comes from consistency. It's not about who talks the loudest, who wins the argument, or who can outsmart the other. It's about emotional steadiness. When a woman knows who she is, her energy doesn't fluctuate based on how someone else feels about her. She's not a storm reacting to every cloud that passes by. She's the calm in the middle of it. Men are drawn to that calm because it represents strength, security, and something they can trust. When you are grounded, you don't need to beg for reassurance. You become reassurance. You become the peace that people crave but rarely find. And there's something magnetic about a woman who doesn't chase clarity because she creates it. She doesn't wait for someone to define the relationship. She defines her expectations from the beginning. She doesn't sit around hoping for a text. She invests her energy where effort is reciprocated. It's not about being hard or detached. It's about knowing her value so deeply that she refuses to audition for a role she already qualifies for. That kind of confidence doesn't scream, it whispers. It shows in the way she carries herself, in the tone of her voice, in the way she says no without guilt and yes without fear. And men, no matter how confident or dominant they seem, are subconsciously wired to respect that. Because deep down, they know that true attraction is built on tension, not the unhealthy kind, but the kind that comes from boundaries. The kind that says, you can have access to me, but not ownership of me. When a woman holds that balance, it makes a man want to rise, not retreat. It makes him want to bring his best self forward, because he knows average won't do. But let's be honest, living by these rules takes courage. It's not easy to stay patient when your emotions are screaming for attention. It's not easy to hold back when all you want to do is fix things, to prove you're worth staying for. It takes discipline to say, if this connection costs me my dignity, it's not love, it's attachment. That's emotional maturity. That's growth. That's the quiet power that turns heartbreak into self-respect. And you see, most people confuse respect with affection. They think if someone shows love, respect automatically follows, but that's not true. Someone can adore you and still not respect you if you allow them to cross boundaries without consequence. Respect is born in how you respond to mistreatment, not in how you explain it away. Every time you let something slide that violates your standards, you teach them that your boundaries are flexible. But every time you calmly enforce your limits, you remind them that your peace is non-negotiable. And there's a saying that people treat you according to the rules you allow. That's not arrogance, it's self-leadership, because the moment you start taking responsibility for how you allow others to treat you, everything changes. You stop waiting for people to get it. You stop over-explaining your worth. You stop tolerating inconsistency. You start realizing that your life becomes lighter the moment you choose peace over potential. And the beautiful thing is, the right people will never be intimidated by your boundaries, they'll be inspired by them. They'll see your standards not as walls, but as gates. Gates that protect the best parts of you, the parts that deserve to be seen and cherished by someone equally capable of giving. That's what respect does. It filters out what's temporary and makes space for what's real. And a woman who lives by these four rules doesn't move with scarcity. She doesn't believe she has to cling to something that's fading. She knows that what's meant for her will meet her halfway. So, instead of chasing validation, she builds value. Instead of waiting to be chosen, she becomes the one worth choosing. And ironically, that's when everything shifts, because men don't pursue desperation, they pursue distinction. They are drawn to the woman who stands in her truth, who doesn't need attention to feel valuable, who doesn't lose her center just because someone doesn't see her right away. And that's what real power looks like: quiet confidence, not loud neediness. It's in the way you can listen without defending, love without losing yourself, and leave without bitterness. It's in how you can wish someone well and still walk away knowing you deserve better. When a man sees that level of grace under pressure, he can't help but respect it. It's rare, it's radiant, it's irresistible, and here's something no one tells you enough. Your boundaries are not walls, they're invitations. Invitations for people to meet you on a higher level. When you say, "This is what I accept and this is what I don't," you're not being difficult, you're being clear. Clarity is kindness. It's how you protect your heart without closing it. It's how you attract people who know how to love, not just want to be loved. And too many people lose themselves trying to be understood. But a woman who lives by these rules doesn't explain her worth. She expresses it through action. When she's not treated right, she doesn't fight harder, she detaches faster. When someone gives mixed signals, she doesn't decode them, she distances herself. When someone disappears, she doesn't chase closure, she becomes it. And that detachment doesn't come from ego, it comes from evolution. And because when you've been through enough cycles of giving too much and receiving too little, you start realizing that peace feels better than potential ever did. You begin to value stability over intensity, presence over promises, and consistency over chemistry. And the moment you make that shift, you stop craving validation from others because you've already given it to yourself. And a woman like that doesn't just attract men, she attracts respect from her friends, her peers, her family, and even from strangers. Because she moves differently, she's not swayed by attention, she's guided by intention, she doesn't fall for words, she looks for patterns. She doesn't cling to confusion, she chooses clarity, even when it hurts. That kind of woman makes a man think differently about love. Because she doesn't try to prove she's the one. She shows it through how she lives, through how she handles herself when life tests her. And let's talk about presence. Respect also comes from how you carry yourself in silence. You don't have to be the loudest voice in the room to be noticed. You don't need to overshare to be understood. There's something incredibly powerful about a woman who can sit in her stillness, who can listen deeply, who can make others feel seen without losing her sense of self. That kind of poise, that quiet confidence, it speaks volumes, and men respect women who don't crumble under pressure, who can handle rejection with dignity, and who know that a no from someone else doesn't define their worth. They see the strength it takes to walk away with your head high, to let go of what's uncertain, and to trust that better is coming. It's that emotional stability that separates a woman who's chasing validation from a woman who's creating value. And here's the magic. Once you embody these principles, you won't have to say much. Your energy will speak for you. People will feel it in how you move, how you talk, how you show up. You'll start noticing how the wrong people fade away effortlessly and the right ones lean in harder. Because respect creates alignment. The more you respect yourself, the more life mirrors that back. And there's a moment every woman reaches when she realizes she doesn't have to fight for what she deserves. She just has to stop settling for what she doesn't. That's the moment everything changes. That's the moment her energy shifts, her standards rise, and her peace expands. Because the moment you decide you're not chasing anyone, not convincing anyone, not overgiving to anyone, you reclaim every ounce of your power. And men deeply respect women who live from that space. Women who can be kind but firm, loving but strong, open but wise. Women who know that being hive, you isn't about playing games, it's about playing by your own rules. The ones who no longer wait to be seen because they see themselves. The ones who no longer beg for consistency because they embody it. The ones who no longer confuse effort with alignment because they know peace is the truest sign of love. And the truth is, respect isn't something you demand. It's something you attract by the way you treat yourself. When your actions say, I don't settle, the world adjusts accordingly because people can sense it when you value yourself. They can feel it in your tone, your boundaries, your choices. And when a man encounters that kind of woman, he doesn't just like her, he admires her, he doesn't just want her, he values her. Because she represents something rare, self-respect in its purest, most powerful form. And when you begin to move from that place of self-respect, everything about how you interact changes. You no longer operate from fear of losing someone, fear of being misunderstood, fear of not being enough. You start to realize that anyone who can truly meet you will never need you to shrink to be loved, and that realization changes everything. It changes how you speak, how you walk, how you respond. It changes how you show up for yourself, because now you no longer see your standards as something to hide. You see them as a filter. And that filter doesn't keep love away, it keeps the wrong kind of love out. And there's something unstoppable about a woman who no longer negotiates with her worth. She doesn't ask, am I too much? She asks, are they capable of enough? That shift in perspective turns her from a seeker of validation into a guardian of value. And that's when she stops attracting potential and starts attracting presence. Because people who are truly ready for you don't need convincing. They recognize your energy and align with it. They respect your time, your boundaries, your effort. They don't make you guess. They make you feel safe in being exactly who you are. And the thing about respect is that it's not just about how others treat you. It's about how you treat yourself in the waiting. What do you do when someone's energy changes? Do you chase clarity? Or do you give space for the truth to reveal itself? Do you demand closure from others or create it for yourself through acceptance? The answer to those questions defines your strength. Because self-respect isn't loud. It's not a statement, it's a pattern. It's in the decisions you make quietly when no one's around to applaud them. It's in how you say no to what doesn't serve you, even when it's lonely. It's in how you choose calm over chaos, maturity over reaction, alignment over attachment. And you see, there comes a point where you realize that love isn't supposed to drain you. It's supposed to ground you. It's supposed to feel safe, not suspenseful. But you can't attract that kind of love when you're still addicted to chaos. When you think love should feel like a roller coaster, you mistake anxiety for passion and uncertainty for depth. The truth is, the more healed you become, the quieter your relationships get. Not because they're boring, but because they're built on peace, not performance. That's what men deeply respect a woman who isn't addicted to emotional drama, who knows that stillness doesn't mean lack of excitement, it means stability. And here's something powerful. When you stop tolerating inconsistency, you start inspiring accountability. The people around you either level up or fall away. You don't have to demand better. They'll know by your presence that only better can stay. That's the unspoken power of a woman who lives with standards. Her silence speaks more loudly than her arguments ever could. Because She doesn't waste her breath trying to convince someone to see her value. She simply lives in a way that makes her value undeniable. And when a man encounters a woman like that, he doesn't feel the need to test her boundaries, he feels compelled to honor them. He senses that she's not someone to play games with, not because she's harsh, but because she's real. She has a quiet kind of strength that says, I know what I bring, and I'm not afraid to be alone if you can't meet me there. That kind of energy doesn't just earn respect, it commands it, because it shows a level of self-possession that's both rare and magnetic. And the truth is, respect and attraction aren't built from perfection, they're built from consistency. A man doesn't fall for a woman just because she's confident. He falls because she's grounded. Because when life throws challenges, she doesn't lose her balance. When things get uncertain, she doesn't abandon herself to chase certainty. She knows that the right connection will never require her to betray her own peace. That's not arrogance, that's emotional intelligence. And think about it, when you respect yourself, you become emotionally predictable in the best way. People know what they'll get from you: honesty, stability, clarity. That reliability is what earns trust, and trust is what earns respect. Because anyone can be charming when things are easy, but it's the way you carry yourself when things get uncomfortable that reveals who you are. And men deeply respect women who can handle disappointment with grace, who can say, I wanted this to work, but I won't force it, who can let go without resentment, who can accept reality without trying to rewrite it, because that's not weakness, it's wisdom. It takes strength to love fully and still walk away when love stops being mutual. It takes maturity to realize that sometimes self-respect looks like silence, not explanation. It looks like choosing yourself, not because you stopped caring, but because you finally started listening to what your peace has been trying to tell you. And as you continue to live from that truth, something shifts in your aura. You start glowing differently, not because someone finally chose you, but because you finally chose yourself. That glow doesn't come from makeup or compliments or validation. It comes from peace, from the deep knowing that you don't need anyone to complete you. You only need someone who complements your wholeness. That kind of energy is irresistible. It doesn't chase. It attracts. It doesn't beg. It inspires, and people often say she changed after she started setting boundaries. But the truth is, she didn't change. She just stopped apologizing for who she's always been. When you stop dimming your light to keep others comfortable, you start shining so brightly that the right people can finally find you. That's when respect turns into reverence, because people realize your love is not something to play with, it's something to rise to. And that's another secret about respect. It doesn't come from demanding power, but from embodying peace. You don't need to prove how strong you are when your silence already says it. You don't need to announce your worth when your presence already commands it. Real power is quiet. It's the strength to walk away without slamming the door, the patience to let actions reveal truth, the discipline to stay calm when everything in you wants to react. And men respect women who master that kind of restraint, who can express emotion without losing control, who can love deeply without losing perspective, who can forgive without forgetting the lesson, because that balance of heart and boundaries, that's what makes her rare. She's soft enough to care, but strong enough to protect herself. She's open enough to connect, but wise enough to discern. That's not something you can fake. It's something you become through self-awareness, through healing, through growth. And as you grow, you begin to see that respect isn't earned through perfection or performance, it's earned through presence. Through showing up as your authentic self, not your pleasing self. Through being honest about your needs even when it scares you. Through saying, this is who I am and this is what I need, and letting the chips fall where they may. That's the kind of authenticity that makes a man stop in his tracks, not because she's trying to impress him, but because she's not trying at all. She's just being, and that's the paradox of true confidence. It's effortless. It's not about acting like you don't care. It's about genuinely knowing that your worth isn't defined by someone's inability to recognize it. When you reach that level of peace, you stop competing, you stop comparing, and you start creating. You create boundaries, balance, and beauty in your own life. You start moving with intention, not impulse. And people notice, men notice. They may not always understand it, but they feel it. And because when a woman is aligned, she becomes unforgettable. She's not the loudest in the room, but she's the one everyone feels drawn to. She's not begging for attention, but she commands it. She doesn't threaten to leave. She simply outgrows what no longer fits. That's what true respect looks like. It's when people understand that access to you is earned, not assumed. It's when your energy becomes a privilege, not a given. And the beauty of living this way is that you stop fearing loss. You realize that you can never lose what's truly meant for you, and you can't keep what isn't ready to meet you. That realization frees you. It allows you to give without attachment, to love without fear, and to walk away without resentment. Because now you're not chasing love, you're choosing peace, and that's what makes you magnetic. That's what makes you powerful. That's what makes you respected. And when you live like that, you stop trying to prove your worth, and instead, you start embodying it. You stop searching for respect, and instead, you start radiating it. And as you do, the world begins to respond in kind. Not because you demanded more, but because you became more. Because you showed that the most powerful kind of woman is not the one who can make a man stay, but the one who can make herself whole, regardless of who leaves. And when you reach that level of wholeness, something extraordinary happens. You stop seeing relationships as a measure of your worth and start seeing them as a reflection of your standards. You stop saying, "Why don't they want me?" and start asking, "Are they capable of meeting me where I am?" That shift changes the entire dynamic of love. You no longer attach your value to someone's effort because you understand that how they show up says everything about them and nothing about your worth. That's when you finally stop chasing potential because you know peace is never found in uncertainty. It's found in alignment. And you start noticing things you used to overlook, the tone behind their words, the consistency behind their promises, the energy behind their effort. You begin to see the truth instead of the illusion. You realize that love isn't proven through intensity, it's proven through integrity. Anyone can say the right things, but not everyone can show up when it counts. And once you've experienced emotional inconsistency enough times, you stop falling for words and start watching actions. That's where respect begins, not in what they say, but in what they repeatedly do. And a woman who has learned that lesson no longer reacts to inconsistency with panic. She responds with distance, not to punish, but to protect her peace. Because she knows that emotional confusion isn't romantic, it's draining. When someone keeps you guessing, it's not passion, it's manipulation. So she steps back, not with anger, but with clarity. She doesn't chase, she doesn't beg, she doesn't plead. She simply detaches, because her energy is no longer tied to convincing someone of her value. It's tied to honoring it. And that kind of energy is powerful because it creates emotional polarity. When you're calm and composed in situations that used to break you, people can feel that shift. You're no longer reactive. You're reflective. You don't explode. You observe. You don't fight for closure. You find it within. That's what makes you magnetic. Not your beauty, not your words, not your charm, but your composure. Because composure says, I trust myself enough not to chase anything that requires me to lose my peace. And there's something deeply alluring about a woman who knows when to walk away quietly. She doesn't announce it. She doesn't dramatize it. She just stops showing up where she's unappreciated. That silence, that's power, that withdrawal of energy, that's the most elegant form of self-respect. Because she knows her time is sacred, her effort is sacred, her love is sacred, and she refuses to waste it on someone who doesn't treat it as such. And men deeply respect that kind of woman because she's not easily swayed. She's not controlled by emotion alone. She's guided by values. She can feel deeply but still think clearly. She can care but still choose herself. That duality, the balance between empathy and boundaries, is what separates a woman who's merely attractive from one who's truly respected. Because attraction fades when there's no respect, but respect deepens when it's met with consistency, integrity, and self-worth. And you see, when you have that inner strength, you no longer need validation from anyone else. Compliments are nice, but they don't define you. Attention feels good, but it doesn't sustain you. You stop needing external confirmation because you've already affirmed yourself internally. That's the kind of self-assurance that can't be taken away. It's not built on someone's approval, it's built on your own belief. And that belief radiates through everything you do, and it shows in the way you speak. Slow, deliberate, certain. It shows in the way you move, graceful, grounded, confident. It shows in the way you love, not out of fear, but out of abundance. Because now you understand that love isn't about possession, it's about connection. And the moment someone stops meeting you with the same energy, you don't try to force it. You simply redirect your energy back to yourself. And there's nothing more powerful than a woman who has mastered the art of detachment, not coldness, but emotional independence. Detachment doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop clinging. It means you can love fully without losing yourself. You can be vulnerable without being naive. You can give without depleting, and that balance makes you untouchable in the best way. Because now, love is something you share, not something you beg for. And this is where the dynamic changes entirely. When a man senses that you're fulfilled on your own, he realizes he has to bring something meaningful to your life to stay. He knows that he can't manipulate your emotions or test your boundaries because you'll walk away without hesitation. That awareness makes him show up differently. It's not fear, it's respect, because he knows you're not afraid to be alone, and that's what makes your presence valuable. But the beauty is, your goal isn't to make him fear losing you. It's to embody such peace that only those who truly value it can stay. You're no longer trying to be the exception in someone's story. You're building your own. You don't measure love by how long someone stays. You measure it by how well they show up. And when they stop showing up, you stop waiting, not out of bitterness, but because you've learned that waiting for clarity from the wrong person only delays the arrival of the right one. And that's emotional evolution. It's when you realize you can love someone and still let them go. It's when you can see potential but not project it. It's when you stop fighting for people who are comfortable with losing you. That doesn't make you cold, it makes you conscious. You no longer see leaving as loss, you see it as alignment. Because every time you walk away from what's not right, you walk closer to what is. And here's the thing, men don't always say it out loud, but they feel it. They feel when a woman has standards she won't bend for attention. They feel when her kindness has strength behind it. They feel when she's emotionally intelligent enough to care without collapsing. That combination of compassion and control makes her unforgettable. Because she's not reactive, she's intentional. She's not performing for approval, she's living in purpose, and when you become that kind of woman, respect is no longer something you have to earn, it's something you embody. You stop needing to demand it because your boundaries naturally command it. You stop needing to prove your worth because your presence proves it for you. You don't talk about what you deserve, you align with it. That's what makes you rare. That's what makes you powerful. And because at the end of the day, what truly earns respect isn't perfection, it's authenticity. It's the courage to show up as you are, even when it scares you. It's the willingness to be misunderstood for being real instead of being loved for being fake. It's the strength to stay kind in a world that often rewards manipulation. That's what separates you from the rest. That's what builds an unshakable reputation, not just as someone who's desirable, but as someone who's deeply respected. And the women who live by these truths aren't untouched by pain. They've simply learned how to transform it. They've cried, they've fallen, they've questioned their worth, but they've used every heartbreak as a reminder, not a reason to settle. Every disappointment taught them a lesson. That peace is priceless, that energy is sacred, and that love without respect is just attachment in disguise. And once you internalize that, you move differently. You no longer chase chemistry, you crave alignment. You no longer fight for connection, you attract it. You no longer beg to be seen. You become impossible to overlook. Because now, your standards aren't walls, they're a mirror, reflecting who you've become and what you'll allow. And you realize that every person who walked away wasn't rejection, it was redirection. Every silence was protection. Every disappointment was a lesson wrapped in disguise, because now you've grown into the kind of woman who doesn't just get attention, she commands respect. The kind who doesn't just inspire interest, she inspires growth. The kind who doesn't just attract love, she attracts loyalty. And that's what separates you from the rest. You're no longer impressed by effort that fades. You're not moved by charm that's inconsistent. You've outgrown words. You now seek patterns. You've outgrown potential. You now seek peace. You've outgrown temporary comfort. You now crave permanent respect. And because once you've tasted peace, chaos no longer feels like love. Once you've known self-respect, settling no longer feels safe. Once you've embraced your worth, you stop asking for what you've already become. And that's the most powerful shift of all. The moment you realize you no longer need to be chosen to feel complete, because you've already chosen yourself,